Welcome to Beyond the Medical Algorithm, a podcast by the Philly Wellness Center. Join us on a journey through the too often neglected path to wellness, where we celebrate the human body and all things natural to illuminate new roads to health and happiness. Holistic is the name of the game, and I'll be talking to fellow experts and enthusiasts to rejoice in healing and revolutionize the way we approach therapy. I'm your host, Catie Harris. Today, we're joined by Bianca Carbone, an online personal trainer, nutritionist, and accountability coach. And she's the driving force behind Blix Fitness. Since founding Blix Fitness in August of 2020, that is a story in of itself, I'm sure, Bianca has been at the forefront of transforming lives through holistic health and fitness approaches that go beyond the usual workout and diet routine. Her philosophy is rooted in the belief that the key to unlocking true health lies in addressing and fixing hormonal imbalances. We're right on par there. So offering a refreshing take on achieving personal health goals. With a dedication to helping busy professionals build lifelong habits, Bianca has helped countless men and women lead healthier and more balanced lifestyles. That's awesome. Welcome, Bianca.
Thanks, Catie. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah. So, just to get started here, navigating, you had mentioned in your bio that you were an insecure tomboy, and then you became a leader in holistic health. So that's a huge journey. And I'm just wondering if you could share a significant moment or some expertise that sparked your passion for fitness and wellness and that journey that you took.
Yeah, definitely. I was definitely a tomboy growing up. I played all the contact sports. I loved to move my body. I was outside climbing trees, roughhousing with my brothers. I just felt like I had a good balance of the typical girly things, but I felt like cheerleading was too slow, gymnastics and ballet, those were too slow. I wanted more action, So yeah, big girl on sports throughout middle school, throughout high school. I was never the best, and that's okay. I just loved moving my body. I loved competing, and that's where I like it. But anyway, I really found my passion for health in college when I was big on strength training. I was big on CrossFit. I learned the impact of nutrition and how that impacts your weight and your hormones. For the first time in my life, I experienced overtraining and how that affects your cortisol, how that affects your sleep. And then that has a cascade of events down the line, which I can get into. But I guess, long story short, college was a turning point for me. I didn't realize how everything was connected, and that just sparked my interest in holistic health and healing from the inside out, which continues to be true all these years later.
I love that you learned that so much earlier on, because I feel like it took me 40 years to learn what you just said. Because I think we're bombarded with this message of work out more, work harder, do all this stuff, and eat less. And it's just kind of backfiring. So it's refreshing to hear you talk about it.
Absolutely.
So you also talk openly about growing up with societal pressures that led to challenging relationships with health and fitness. Can you talk about some of those early experiences?
Yeah. So I got into strength training from my older brother. To preface, I have an oldest sister, an older brother, me, and then a younger brother. But my older brother really got me into strength training when I was 15 years old. And I felt like I was the only girl who did any type of weight training and was really into muscle building at that age, and it was an outlet for me. I fell in love with it from the jump. I loved challenging myself, and I felt my best in the gym. And of course, I had all these cute goals that I was chasing after. But anyway, I felt very isolated at the time, especially because that was the start of some hormonal shifts that was happening in my body in terms of acne, which was a big insecurity of mine. But I felt like I couldn't make a lot of friends or have those close relationships where I'd see all these boys in the gym and there'd be these big groups of boys just weightlifting, and I was just playing around after school, and I never had that. So I felt like no matter how many friends I tried to introduce to strength training or introduce to the gym, I just didn't find that companionship there. I finally found a friend who was into strength training my freshman year of college. She's still my best friend to this day, but it was just a long time coming. And now seeing all these women in the gym, just strength training, they're kicking butt everywhere. They're all over social media. It's amazing. I'm so happy that more women are joining the clubs.
That's awesome. I feel like you can always find what you need in college. Maybe not in high school, but in college for sure. And I love that women especially, are strength training. So why do you think there aren't as many women in strength training or haven't been.
I think growing up, it's just they thought they're going to get big and bulky. I think that's still kind of the thing where women just like don't want to look super masculine. They don't want to look like a man, which we obviously know that's not true. 7 years strong or 10 years strong, like I definitely don't think I look like a man. But I think the biggest hindrance was they don't want to look manly. Other than that, my only other thoughts are it just requires a little bit more effort than something like Zumba, or like it's not as fun as doing something like Pilates or bar, but it definitely has more benefits than those other classes.
So when you work with people, do you always introduce them first to strength training or do you have to ease them into it?
I would say ease. Some people, they start off super light with home equipment or light dumbbells, light resistance bands, and then we work their way into the gym. But I would say for most people, the first step is form. So I'm not going to have you lifting heavy weights until your form is there. So whether we're doing virtual training or in person, first things first, we get your foundations, we master them, and then we build upon into different variations.
And how do you help women kind of work through that idea that they're strength training for strength and not to look manly or that they're going to bulk up? I mean, can women even bulk up as much as that, we fear that we can?
Not naturally, truthfully, not as naturally as you want to. And then I explain to them the differences that men and women have, that women have less testosterone, and that's really an anabolic. Like you need to have testosterone, a lot of it to build muscle. So naturally, you're not going to get to that point. It takes a lot of consistency, dedication, and effort to have those jacked muscles, which if you're a woman and you have that, that's great if that's what you want. But for women who don't want to have that, you have to work so hard to achieve that. You need to be 100% on all of the time. You need to take all of the supplements. It's possible if you focus on that. But if you go to the gym just a couple times a week, your nutrition's okay, you're not going to bulk up. It's just impossible.
So it's not going to accidentally happen.
No, like it takes so much effort to do that.
All right. So how do you approach clients about a diet with this? Like, do you have people do special types of diets?
I don't really like diets. I like to meet you where you're at. So what I like to do is we'll track your food, whether it's in a food journal or something like my Fitness Pal, and you track your macros. We'll do that for a week, including a weekend. So I want to have a clear picture of what you're eating: breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, late night snacks, desserts, alcoholic beverages. I don't care, whatever goes in your mouth, I want to see. So from that, we sit down and we collaborate on a meal plan together. I say, hey, like these are habits we want to kick. These are habits we want to add. Let's add in more protein here. Let's reduce carbs here. Maybe try this for a pre-workout snack. Try this for post-workout. And then we'll collaborate on a game plan of like, what's the most important thing over the next 2 weeks that I want you to do. We'll outline that. And then together we form this routine that's 100% for you. So I will rarely ever suggest to someone, oh, you should do keto. You should do carnivore diet. That's not really what I like to do. I want to meet you where you are, so it's sustainable.
How about a caloric intake? Do you have them drop their caloric intake?
Depends on the person and their history. So some people will come to me and they're clearly in a caloric surplus where they're having like 2,500 plus calories daily, and they're probably not burning that. And that's why they're consistently gaining weight. But I've had plenty of people who've come to me in 1,100 calories daily, and they've been doing that for 4 years, and they're gaining weight. They're gaining body fat. And those are the types of people where I'll reverse diet and I'll increase their calories, I'll increase their macronutrients, couple that with strength training and a specific routine, and then we'll go into the deficit. So it depends on where you start, which is why I don't always suggest, hey, we're going to reduce your calories, because not everyone needs that.
It must be hard for people to come to you for strength training and weight loss and you tell them to eat more.
Yeah. Some people are like, girl, I think you have that backwards. Like, no, just trust the process.
All right. So you also emphasize the role of hormones, and hormones are my passion. I love them. So I'm so glad that you talk about this in your fitness. So what is it about hormones, and what is it that you teach people? What do they need to know?
Yeah, that's a fully loaded
I
question.
know.
Well, obviously, women go through so many different hormonal shifts in her life. The first one, obviously, being the start of your menstrual cycle, and the second most obvious one being the end of your menstrual cycle when you're later in life, you're in your 40s, your 50s, you're in perimenopause and menopause. And then, if you choose to, you can get pregnant, you can go through the postpartum, and you can even do that multiple times. So, it's a wild ride for a woman. But I would say there's probably like three main groups of women who are struggling with their hormones, and that's women who are either pre or post pregnancy, postpartum range, like they're not necessarily trying to have a kid, or they're well past their postpartum range where they're having irregular cycles, they have weight they just can't get rid of, they have PMS, they have heavy periods, they have skin problems where they fit the category of having something like PCOS or endometriosis, or their thyroid is out of whack, or what have you. There's a million things that you could have, or even like ovarian cysts. So there's one camp of women. And then you have the middle camp of women who are freshly postpartum. Let's say that's like within 3 to 6 months. They're trying to like get their periods back, or trying to support lactation, or they're trying to lose the pregnancy weight. And I use quotation marks for a reason, but they're just trying to like regain the strength that they had, get themselves where they were pre-pregnancy. And then you have the third camp of women who are in that perimenopause, menopause situation where things are starting to change. They're starting to gain a little bit more weight around the midsection. There's elasticity is changing. They have mood swings, hot flashes. They have all the symptoms of some months you're releasing an egg and others you're not. So those are the three main camps, I would say, where women will be like, what the heck is going on? And then how can we change my macronutrients, my micronutrients, my supplementation, my exercise, my sleep, my stress management to support the changes that my body's going through?
Yeah. And what are some of the misconceptions that you encounter with hormones, especially in the fitness industry?
That's a really good question as well. I think one thing is some women are afraid to increase the intensity of their workouts or their fitness in fear that it'll mess up their hormones. Like it'll mess up their cycle or make what they're doing worse. Whereas to do something like overtraining and overexert yourself, that also takes a significant amount of effort, or I'm talking like Olympic athlete level. Whereas like you're not doing that by working out 3 days a week. That's just not happening. So I think that's a misconception for sure. Another misconception is doing like high intensity workouts and what that actually means. So I think that many women, and honestly people in general, think that they're doing more than what they actually are doing, and it's actually hurting their progress
Mhm.
over time. Other things like nutrition wise, some women don't eat carbs, or they think that fats are bad for them, and there's a whole bunch of myths surrounding that where it's hard to get through. You need to have carbs, you need to have healthy fats, like a balanced diet is where it's at. So it's a variety of things.
Yeah, I mean, I've had this conversation, especially because I work with a lot of perimenopausal women, and they're doing the high intensity training and they're exhausted and stressed out. And I'm like, you need to stop. Like,
Yeah.
it's too much. Then you don't realize how much hormones can play a role in weight gain. And the more you stress out the body, the more you're just complicating everything.
Exactly, especially because stress and cortisol, it steals all your other hormones. Like it quite literally converts them into cortisol. So if you're already losing out and reducing something like progesterone in that time frame of your life, the last thing you want to do is make it worse than it already is.
Right,
So
right. Yeah, then
yeah.
they're the same people that go into the do a cold plunge and you're like, "Oh my god, stop." Like your poor
Stop
body.
it. Yeah, definitely like my approach has evolved. When I was an athlete or in college, or I was just like not experiencing my own hormone problems, I was like, yeah, like I'm gonna go, 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 work harder, do more, go harder, go home. Whereas now I take a much more like relaxed approach where I'm like, hey, I actually don't need to kick my butt every single day.
Right. Yeah, I mean, your approach to fitness is definitely refreshing and nutrition as well. So, how do you feel about, I guess, sugar intake or having ice cream or when you're on vacation, just having a little cheat, I guess, like
I'm queen 80/20. Unless you want to go 90-10, that's cool with me. But I always say, honestly, you should indulge and you should schedule those into your calendar. You should put something there that you want to look forward to, whether it's a date with your significant other or a night out with your friends. Like, do it. Please do. Because it helps you stay more consistent and it helps you stay more consistent long term. The more restrictive you are, the less likely you're going to stick with it. Whereas, like, everybody can cut something out for 30 days.
Right.
But that's not the goal here. Ice cream is delicious. You should eat the ice cream. You should have cocktail margaritas, yes. When you do it too much, that's the problem.
Right.
When you sprinkle it in and you're 100% good 80% of the time, you're golden.
Yeah. It's funny because I remember like years and years ago, I decided that I was going to restrict sugar. I was never going to have sugar again. It was out of my diet whatsoever. And 5 minutes after making this proclamation to myself, I was like, I need sugar. Like I was going through this like fit. Like just the thought of never having it again was enough to send me into a frenzy. And so that didn't last very long. But I feel like you can sprinkle some of this stuff in without gouging on it or gorging on it.
Yeah, 100%. And there's different types of sugar. You have your fake sugar, you have your natural sugar, you have table sugar. There's when you're craving it's important because obviously, like as you know, you have your insulin, you have your blood sugar, and all of those waves and rhythms are important. But nonetheless, you still have to enjoy life.
So Blix Fitness, you guys do personalized plans for individuals. Can you walk us through the process of how you customize these plans?
Yeah, absolutely. So my client, I guess, would come in, they'd submit intake form, they tell me how many days a week they can work out for, how long the workouts can be, what equipment they have access to, if they want to be at home, if they want to be at the gym, if they have any injuries or limitations I should be aware of. And then using that information, I create them a program and I phase it into like 3 to 4 week chunks where they're likely going to follow something super similar for the first 3 to 4 weeks. And then we rotate exercises every couple of weeks in phases. I update the programs weekly so that if you're like, hey, Bianca, I'm going to be out of town next week, I'm only going to have a resistance band with me. I'll update your program so you can keep it going there. Or if you just injured your ankle this week, then I can adapt your program as you evolve. So everything I do, it's 100% customized and supported towards you, your goals, and I keep track of your progress in terms of weight, reps, all the nerdy stuff, and then I'll give suggestions of what you should be lifting the following week.
Okay. And how do you track all this? I mean, are you there online with them while they're doing their exercises?
Yeah, I do both. So I do Zoom training, like what you mentioned. I hop on Zoom, you hop on Zoom. We work out together for about 30 minutes. I'll walk you through form cues. I'll have a workout designed for you. We usually meet like 2 times a week for that. That works really well for some people. And then others, we have asynchronous training where I'll provide you the training program that you do on your own. And then we check in once a week through our accountability calls. I ask you about some specific exercises. We talk about strategies if you miss something or we need to change something the following week. So I do both.
Now, what about mental wellness? How does that factor into exercise and your fitness philosophy?
Yeah, so we tackle a lot about mental health in our accountability calls. So that's a one-to-one call with you between like 15 to 45 minutes sometimes, depending on the person, where I ask you what's up. I say, how's your sleep? How's your stress? How's your personal life going? Everyone is so different, which is why I don't like cookie cutter programs. Anyone can follow a program, but a coach is what the difference is between you purchasing something and you implementing it. So I feel like for a lot of people, we go through your personal life, your strategies, whatever you want to share with me about what's going on. We'll find a way to integrate health and fitness and meet you where you are.
So now you also help women to optimize the hormones and menstrual cycles. Where did this idea come from and what does it mean exactly?
So it came from having my own problems over the past several years. I was recently finally got the diagnosis for PCOS, which it's really common now. It affects like 1 in 10 women, which is still a bummer. I'm sure the number is actually higher than that. But after experiencing what it's like to grow an ovarian cyst, have them rupture, know what it's like to have irregular cycles, the impact it can have on something like your skin, and you're having mood swings and sugar cravings, and you have all this variety of symptoms. It's extremely challenging to stay consistent, stay positive and motivated, and see progress. it's one of the hardest things you could possibly do, especially if you're in physical pain from having ovarian cysts or just inflammation down there. I don't have endometriosis personally, but I've heard from my friends and other clients that it's extremely painful sometimes. So, which is yet on a side tangent, another reason why everything I do is so personalized, because someone who doesn't have that can't do the same exercises as someone who does have that. But anyway, I earned one of a woman's holistic hormone practitioner certification. I took a 10-month course on it. I learned all about stress. I learned all about your thyroid, your liver detoxification, your menstrual hormones, how that changes throughout your life cycle, different types of imbalances you have and how that impacts you. And experiencing it firsthand myself, I'm like, oh my goodness, there's probably a million other women who go through this, especially women who are in their later 30s, 40s, 50s, where things are actually changing. Me being 25-year-old who was early 20s at the time going through all of this, it's something you can't explain until you've experienced it yourself. Where I just wanted to bring hormonal support into my nutrition, focusing on micronutrients and liver detoxification, going into herbal medicine. How can we use herbs like Vitex or chasteberry or saw palmetto, whatever it is, to help support you and your symptoms? How can we change your diet, your exercise to be more conducive to your hormonal health? So that's a long-winded answer. So I'll let you.
No, yeah, it's a great answer. And it's hard. I mean, that's how I got into perimenopause stuff, because going through it, I'm like, oh my God, there's got to be a way to deal with this. And when you start researching and getting into, I mean, there's so much information out there, and that can be problematic as well. I mean, if you look at nutrition and diet, I mean, there's so much noise out there about what you should do, what you could do, who do you listen to, and how do you know what to do? How do you help people with that?
I know it's so challenging, and the noise is noisy. You're right. And I think sometimes I feel like coaches and teachers and people like me post things to combat other coaches, and it makes it more confusing for your audience, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So how I do it, since everything is so personalized and we take you where you're starting, most people aren't even doing the basics.
Right.
So everyone pretty much starts off at the basics. Are you hitting your protein goal? Are you managing your carbohydrates? Are you choosing complex carbs? Are you choosing healthy fats? Are you limiting the fried foods, limiting the drinking? Most people are not even doing that.
Right.
And then we look into exercise. What are we doing here? Are you just going on some walks, or do we have some strength training involved as well? So typically we start strength training a couple of times a week. And just by doing that, a lot of women are already see a vast improvement. Now, if you do those things and you're still experiencing things like that are hormone related, then we look at, do you have insulin resistance? What's your blood sugar like? How's your thyroid? Can we support your detoxification better? What are different supplements and vitamins and minerals we can add into your diet to support this? So that's the second layer to it. And then you do that for a couple of months and you likely will see changes. If you don't, then we're like, okay, can we order some labs? Who can we put you in touch with that's going to have a better solution for you than what your lifestyle can do?
Right. You started this company in August of 2020, which was obviously a notorious year. I mean, how did this come about? And the one question I always love to ask entrepreneurs is like, how did you know it would succeed?
That's a great question. Well, first of all, I would say I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit. Both of my parents are entrepreneurs. My dad's in construction. They've owned restaurants. I grew up with it. So I feel like I've always had that background of watching my parents grind it out. And I've always just wanted that for myself. I've had experiences, internships, and co-ops at companies. So I started in 2020. I had experiences lined up with GSK. I had a full-time job lined up, and that dwindled because of the pandemic. My whole department basically got eliminated for budget cuts. And I couldn't intern or work in the hospital for my major because of the pandemic. So because my business was already successful, I was like, I'm just going to stick with this. Like, I love what I'm doing. There's uncertainty in the air. Health is the only thing you can control. And all of those things combined just fueled my flame even more. I'm like, I'm here to change the world. Let's do this thing.
Right.
And then got struck down with my own health problems, the PCOS and everything. And it just evolved over the past couple of years. So now I'm shifting into the hormone space.
Do you think the pandemic allowed for the type of business that you started to just catch on more easily?
I do. I had a fitness account from a very, like, not very young age, but like at the end of high school. What is that, like 2017? I'm old. So 2017, I feel old now. I started my account and I was really shy and I didn't want anyone to see it. So I didn't tell anyone about it. And I was kind of on and off with it because I felt a little embarrassed for some reason. Because I felt like at the time, like recording yourself and posting on the internet was kind of,
Yeah.
I was like, what are you doing? Stop. And then I feel like COVID, everybody was on their phones recording themselves. So it's kind of like normal to do that now. If you see someone recording themselves, I'm like, oh, whatever, like you do you. But it was not like that 7 years ago. So yes, I do think it built confidence. I love what I do. I talk about it to everybody. It's cool now.
Right. So how do people find you now?
My main platform is LinkedIn. You can find me at Bianca Carbone, or you can find me on Instagram at Blix, BLIX_fit. And I'm also starting to post a lot on Lemon 8. It's a newer platform owned by
Congrats.
It's on the come up, but I also post there.
Awesome. And what's like one piece of advice you want to give people that are, I don't know, maybe skeptical or curious or they're not sure where to start? Like, what should they do?
Oh my goodness, there's so many pieces of advice. I would say start small. Pick one thing at a time, get it going, and don't worry about doing the extremes. Like, stop with the extremes. Just, if you want to start exercising, pick 2 workouts and do them for that whole week, and do that for 3 weeks, and then you add on another one. And then maybe you start focusing on your nutrition. Like, just pick one thing, start small, master it. Don't go to the extremes. That's not what you need.
I love it. And are you taking new clients?
I am.
And so they can just go to Blix Fitness, or where else would you want them to go?
Yeah, they can go on my LinkedIn, they can go on my Instagram, or they can find me at blixfit.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing this with us today, Bianca.
Of course, Catie, thanks so much for having me.
Beyond the Medical Algorithm is brought to you by the Philly Wellness Center. To find out more about the Philly Wellness Center and how we're challenging conventional medical wisdom and shedding light on more natural means of healing and therapy, visit phillywellnesscenter.com. And then make sure to search for Holistic Health in Apple Podcast, Spotify, and Google Podcast, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Make sure to click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. On behalf of the team here at the Philly Wellness Center, keep celebrating the innate power in our incredible bodies, and thanks for listening.